It was a few years back. I was home alone with my daughter, who was basically a newborn. She was asleep in her bassinet beside my bed. I was in my old house alone as my ex-husband was working nights. My bedroom was on the second floor. It was around midnight when I woke up to give my daughter a bottle. As she settled back into sleep, I lay in bed, scrolling on my phone, trying to get tired again. I'm cautious about believing things people post to Facebook without sources, but a few people had made the same post, and then I came across an article stating there was a murderer on the run. He had killed a man in the next town over from me and was running from police. It said they were advising people to stay inside and lock their doors, and some even received phone calls. Stuff like this was a rare happening where I lived, so, of course, I was freaked out. I texted my husband at work, who had a hard time believing this, but told me to keep my police scanner on. I fell asleep. I'm not sure how long I was asleep for, but I suddenly woke up because the officers in the scanner were screaming, shots fired, and then I had a hard time distinguishing what I was hearing on my phone and what was going on outside. The rapid gunfire started and sounded like it was right in the street outside my window. It took me a moment to register the noise as shots to my virgin ears. And then it was like time suddenly slowed down as I rolled off my bed and grabbed my daughter. I remember running into the hallway in what seemed like slow motion with blurry tunnel vision, with her away from all the windows, screaming, "What the heck is happening?" in my head. I shakily dialed my ex-husband at work, and he still wasn't really believing what was going on. So I yelled and called my mom. I just wanted somebody to talk to, so I didn't feel so alone and scared. I kept telling her there was a shooting and I was crying. So maybe she didn't understand me in her half-woke state of mind. I don't even remember what happened after she realized what I was saying, because suddenly I was hanging up and putting the phone on the floor. I stayed in the hallway for I don't know how long, clutching my sleeping baby, who somehow slept through all of this chaos. My body was on vibrate. Sometime later, my phone was ringing and it was my mom. I could barely focus enough to listen, but I thought she told me that she was coming over, so I told her to stay home where she was safe. She was yelling at me that she was already on my road, but that the police had it blocked off. She told them she was my daughter. I lived on the road and they let her come. They had shot the suspect. He was dead. When my mom came up to the front porch, we saw wet, muddy footprints coming up the stab, smeared on the door like he had kicked it. I'm wondering if that is maybe what woke me up at first. By the time my mom got to my house and came inside, it was 5:00 a.m. It was winter, so it was still pitch black dark outside. We sat quietly in the bright kitchen, tiredly sipping coffee and passing my daughter back and forth. My ex-husband arrived home shortly after and believed everything once he saw all of the cops in the road blocked off. Long story short, this man had killed somebody the next town over from me, about 3 to 5 minutes away, ran to my town, through my backyard to the road through the trees, and killed another person in the house behind me. That's when the cops showed up, and he began to shoot at them, so they shot at him. All the gunfire that I heard, he lay dead in the measly patch of woods in the back of my house. I had goosebumps thinking about all of this murder taking place around me as I lay in bed. When my mom left and my ex-husband put our daughter back to bed, I stepped outside on the back porch to smoke a cigarette. 8 months smoke-free. I stood there smoking and watching all the lights, a stark contrast against the early great morning cold. That afternoon, I ended up having to block multiple news reporters for harassing me to tell my story. I told them that I had no problem telling them the story in more detail, but I didn't want to be on television. I had not slept and had my daughter with me. They said they wanted her on camera too. After denying them, they kept asking if I was at work. They could come to my work to do the interview. So I ended up blocking them and moving on with my life. Story 2. It all started over a year ago living in my current small neighborhood. It was unusually hot in our house for October, and my sister figured it'd be a good idea to keep her window open for a bit of air. She was doing her homework, and I was getting ready for bed when suddenly she bursts into my room. She frantically says that she heard some noises outside, sounds of leaves crunching under a person's steps. I believed it to be an animal, so I walk into her room and stay there for not more than 5 minutes till I hear leaves crunching. We quickly glance out the window only to hear the sound of something running away in the woods. But that wouldn't be the end of the story. During the winter, I enjoy exploring the woods towards the back of my house, climbing trees and traveling further back to the fields. I remember the events very clearly. It had just snowed that night, the first snowfall of winter, and I was more excited than ever to head out there. I did so and climbed my usual tree to look out. I gave a cursory glance around me and at the grounds when I noticed something strange. Footsteps leading away from my house. This wouldn't be weird as long as the front of the footsteps didn't end up pointing straight at my house, and the origin of them came from a seemingly long-off start. I tracked them down up to a point where there was a rusty wire fence covered in snow where they disappeared. October 2017. It started up again. I was laying in my bed pitch dark, not a light shining through my room when I heard it. My doorknob turning and my door creaking open, my heart stopped. Every single possibility of what it was rushing through my mind. Keep in mind, my door is always shut when I go to sleep. Since I was covered by my blanket, I quickly shot my sister a text. "Did you just come into my room?" She replied with a sharp, "No, I'm all the way in Hillard." My heart began pumping fast. I slowly stuck my hand under my pillow and grabbed my baton, sent a text to my dad, and waited. My dad came in mere minutes later with a knife, shot on the lights, and I jumped out of bed. Searched the entire house with nothing. Alarm set and all doors locked. Impossible. There's no way that happened. My dad and my mom were asleep, and a cat would have opened it much faster if it jumped to the doorknob. You best believe I didn't sleep a second that night. Fast forward to December. My relatives in town staying for a week in the basement. We turn on the alarm and all head to sleep. I stayed up gaming. In the morning around 2:30 to 3, estimated since I wasn't aware what had transpired. My uncle slowly opened his eyes with a feeling of being watched. His eyes adjusted a bit to the dark before he saw it. A guy average height, scrawny, hair flowing in the wind and shivering, looking inside their room through the window. My uncle screamed and they grabbed the baby before taking off upstairs. That morning, I was informed what happened. I looked for footprints and saw only the smallest sign of a footprint, a front toe print made by what I could only assume was a sneaker. My uncle gave me more details without me telling him. I looked for footprints, and he said the guy was leaning to the left looking in. The footprint matched his story. The left had a thin line of dirt. Anybody could have shimmied across. Now that leads to tonight. The night I could swear he or whatever it was had been in our house. I couldn't sleep. Life has been stressful lately, and I was up pretty much all night until I tried getting rest. Every night I've had string Christmas lights dimly light the room until tonight. I figured the lights must have been interfering with my sleep, so I unplugged them and headed off to sleep. Pillow over my head, I started to drift off until it happened. A quick strum of my guitar and the sound of something falling over with a desperate attempt to stop it from hitting the ground filled the room. This sound ignited my heart rate. Saliva developing at an extreme speed made it hard not to swallow. I could feel the presence of somebody in my room. Realizing I left my baton on my desk, I did the next logical thing. Pretend I was asleep. I tried and laid there for what felt like hours when in reality it was only a few minutes until I heard a whimper come from my sister's room. Imagining this may be the day everyone in my family was silently murdered but me, I gathered all the courage I had. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and grabbed my baton. I busted into my sister's room and screamed, "Hey," only to see that they were unharmed. My sister asked what the heck I was doing, and I just stood there. looked into the pitch black of my room, and cried. I've never in my life felt the overwhelming emotion of believing my family was going to be taken from me until today. I sit here in my chair writing this in hopes to document my experiences and try to come to some logical conclusion. All I can come up with is that there is some guy stalking my family and perhaps sneaking into our rooms at night. If anything else happens, I'll post it to this thread. I'm going to try to sleep now. Story 3. I've never posted anything here before, and this feels kind of tame compared to some of the things here, but it still haunts me to this day. This happened when I was a teenager around 14 or 15 in high school. I had a boyfriend at the time who lived a fairly short walk from the school end. We would often walk to his place after school ended and hang out for a few hours before I went home. Because we took the same route so often, I knew all the houses and landmarks on the way. In January, I live in the north, so the winter is pretty cold and snowy. My boyfriend and I started to notice a car that had been parked in the same spot for a while. We thought nothing of it at the time. Maybe the car had died in the cold, and whoever owned it couldn't afford to have it repaired. But as spring came and the snow melted, the car was still there, parked in the same spot at the end of my boyfriend's street. We passed it almost every day as we walked there after school, and as the days grew warmer, a rotten stench started to rise from the car. I joked to my boyfriend, "I bet there's a body in that trunk," and we laughed it off. But we were curious now, so one day we peered inside the car windows as we passed. The car was messy, but not filled with trash or food. A discarded backpack lay across the seat, and papers were thrown here and there. It just looked like any ordinary car, except we knew that it hadn't moved for months, and the smell was indescribable. The smell continued to get worse as the spring turned to summer. One day I couldn't come over for some reason. My boyfriend and his dad decided to investigate the car. They found that the doors were unlocked and the keys were inside the car. That was pretty strange. They went around to the back and popped open the trunk. My boyfriend told me that a swarm of black flies flew up from the inside. The smell was definitely coming from the trunk. Inside were a bunch of black garbage bags. My boyfriend and his dad called the cops at this point. The cops later told us that inside of those bags was rotting meat cut into pieces. The first pieces of meat they tested belonged to a pig, but a few weeks later my boyfriend's dad got another call. Under the pygmy were the bones of a human child. Whoever left that car sitting unlocked with the keys inside was obviously hoping the car would be stolen. It still gives me the shivers. Story 4. This week has been hectic. My 3 kids have the flu. All this was first, then my younger 2 caught it. After a visit to the clinic, I was heading to the CVS down the street from our house for their prescriptions. I decided last minute to drop my kids off at home with their dad so they could rest and I could go inside the store to pick up some Pedialyte. I consider our neighborhood to be safe. I've taken walks after dark and never felt afraid. Most of our neighbors are older folks who have lived there over a decade. When I pulled up to the CVS, I parked on the side parallel to our street. It's darker on that side, but the entrance is right around the corner and well lit. There was a man standing outside. He walked in front of my car and I could hear him talking, but my music was kind of loud. I figured he was on his phone or something. No real red flags yet. My husband called me as the man walked back towards the corner adjacent to the entrance. I got out of my car, still on the phone, telling my husband, "Yeah, the kiddos have the flu. I'm picking up medicine at the CVS, etc." In a very pleasant voice, the man says to me, "Hey, I got a question for you. You know where Main Street is?" I, assuming he is asking for directions or the location of something, tell him I do. I'm still holding my phone to my ear. It's in a bright pink case, so I'm sure you could see it. Now this man is standing directly in front of me. There is a pillar in a trash can behind him. Around the corner is a propane cage and a red box against the store's wall. Getting past him would have put me in arm's reach. Next, he asks me for a ride there. To a homeless shelter. It's very cold outside and he doesn't want to freeze. I empathize with him, but I said I couldn't. I offered to buy him some gloves and or a blanket, and to ask if an employee in the store could assist him in finding a ride. This guy's face instantly changed to pure rage, then right back to pleasant. Well, you know what happens to homeless people stuck outside. You're going to help me. It's right down the street. I'm standing there unsure what to do. My husband is on the phone asking me what's going on. I gently tell the man that I don't feel comfortable doing that and that I have the flu. I don't, and my husband is on the phone with me. I don't care about the flu, he said. Now he's getting more angry and not moving away from my route into the store. I didn't want to turn my back on him to go to my car, which was several feet away in the dark. While this guy is glaring at me, I decided to quickly walk past him. I had my mask from the clinic in my jacket pocket. So I pulled that out and held it in front of me while I moved towards the trash can. He looked disgusted, but kept telling me that I needed to give him a ride, that it's right down the street, and kept insisting. But I know where that street is, and it's not as close as he says. He tried to guilt me, and his words felt threatening, but he didn't actually threaten me verbally. Once I was around the corner, I rushed into the store straight to the pharmacy. My husband said he's calling the police. He heard the way the man was talking to me and said to stay in the store. My knees were shaking. I'm not usually the type to be afraid when confronted. When I got to the pharmacy, I interrupted the pharmacist and a customer, apologizing, then told them what happened. The pharmacist sent the store manager out. A tall guy with a long beard looked like he doesn't take crap from people. The police had already arrived. The man was told to leave, which he did momentarily. He came back inside the store yelling obscenities and something about me. Now the store manager has told him to get the heck out. He's trespassing on the property. The cop came back to talk to me and told me she has arrested him many times. He's loud and likes to yell at people, but he isn't violent. The pharmacist had me hiding behind the screen where they gave vaccines and left the half door to the pharmacy cracked open in case I needed to get out of there. The cop had also told me this guy's first and last name, as did the store manager. Is that normal? The prescriptions are finally filled and I leave the store. The police parked next to my car to keep an eye on me. Oh, and the man refused to ride from the cop to the shelter. Later, I looked him up. His name is unique, so he was easy to find online. Surprise, surprise. He has a long record spanning 3 states and several counties. Tons of public intoxication charges. DWI, urinating in public, assault and battery, and indecent exposure. I also looked up the homeless shelter. Yeah, as I thought, there isn't one where he wanted me to take him, but that area is super sketchy. Earlier today, I went to the corner store across from the CVS and told my friend, the overnight shift employee, what happened. She kicks him out of the store and calls the police every time she sees him because he yells and threatens customers, but he always takes off before the police arrive. I know I could have handled that better. I was blindsided by his instant from pleasant to filled with rage, but big thank you to the pharmacy team who kept me safe and the store manager for confronting the creep. They didn't have to do all that. I'm also thankful my husband recognized I was in an unsafe situation over the phone. That man is still out there somewhere in my area. Story 5. I was 20. Living alone on the ground floor of an apartment building. My living room windows faced the small parking lot for the building, which wasn't gated. I'd stay up late, watching TV or playing games almost every night. It was winter when I first moved in, so I'd have all the blinds down at night to help keep the cold air out. Summer came and there was no AC in the apartment, so I'd open the windows and blinds at night for cool air. One night, I'm lying on the couch watching TV when I get that feeling of being watched. I looked over at the window and the man had his hands and face pressed against the screen merely 3 feet from where I was lying just watching me. I let out a blood-curdling scream and he didn't even blink. Terrified, I jumped up, grabbed the phone, and screamed that I was calling the cops. He still just stood there completely motionless and deadied. At that point, I yelled that I'm getting the neighbor and started walking to the door, and he finally took off. I locked the window and stayed up all night completely on edge. My boyfriend at the time came over and stayed for a full week. He made sure to leave the blinds open and sat at the edge of the couch closest to the window to make it known I wasn't always alone. The creeper didn't show up again. So eventually I got comfortable thinking it was an isolated incident of some rando wandering around the parking lot to break into cars or something. Maybe another 3 weeks after that, I get home late from waiting tables and park in the lot. I get changed, grab a snack, and head to the living room to play games. I start to raise the blinds to open the windows and let in cool air, and the creeper is standing right there with his face pressed against the screen. He was not standing in the parking lot when I pulled in. As I parked right by my window, I can only assume he was waiting around the corner of the building, watching me come home and timing my movements. This time I grabbed my phone immediately and called the cops. I was shaking, crying, and completely hysterical. The creeper takes off, the cops come, and they say they'll have someone patrol the block when they can. And my boyfriend immediately comes over. He wants to stay with me until I can get out of there. So I start looking at different apartments. Another 3 to 4 weeks or so later, I have an apartment lined up on a high floor in a doorman building because at that point, screw that. My boyfriend had to go out of town for a few days, so I decided to stay at a friend's place because I certainly wasn't going to be there alone. I'm at my friend's place for 2 nights, but wanted to run home and grab a few things I'd forgotten. She goes with me for obvious reasons, and we go in the afternoon, not after dark. We decide to hang out for a bit and play games together because it's daylight and there is activity around the building. No AC, so I hesitantly raise the blinds to get fresh air. I'm terrified opening them, then laugh myself because I do it. And of course, nobody is there. I open the actual window and see 2 large holes cut into the screen right above the latches you push in to lift it. They were definitely not there 2 days ago. My blood ran entirely cold. The creeper knew my boyfriend was gone. He was watching and saw his car was gone. I left my car there as my friend picked me up, and we always left a light on in the living room to make the creeper think we were awake. So he saw my car, thought I was home, saw the light on, yet proceeded to cut holes in the screen to break in. I have no idea if he actually gained access, but seeing how bold he was terrified me, how long he had been watching me, learning my patterns, and getting gradually more aggressive with every interaction. I still sometimes get a chill when I raise my blinds, and it took a long time getting comfortable living in anything but a high rise.